Hello, I'm meteorologist Chris Ramirez with your hurricane season forecast. We are looking at a quiet season so far. We have not had any tropical storms or hurricanes impact the U.S., even though we are in the peak of hurricane season. So we've had nothing but tropical storms out in the Atlantic basin. Of course, Aaron was a Category 5, but these just remaining mostly over open water. As we look at the tropics now, we still have Gabrielle still churning out in the Atlantic. It is forecasted to become a hurricane, but it's still going to be a fish storm, not impacting any land masses in the next several days. That's expected to move into a Category 2 hurricane as it moves just to the east of Bermuda, eventually traveling in the northern Atlantic, eventually weakening. But it poses the question, when was the last time that we've had a quiet hurricane season? And how often does this happen? It's actually quite rare for it to happen. One notable year was back in 1990, where the U.S. has had no tropical storms or hurricanes impact that year. You've had Marco, which was a tropical storm when it was over the Gulf, but it weakened into a tropical depression just prior to landfall in Florida. Still not considered and not strong enough to be a tropical storm. Another year that was quiet was back in 2013, where we had Tropical Storm Andrea, impacted the Florida Panhandle, and that storm continued its northward track, and that was the only storm that we saw back in 2013. Back in 2009, we only were impacted by Tropical Storm Claudette, which impacted the Panhandle once again. You also had extratropical cyclone Ida that weakened into an extratropical cyclone just prior to landfall. But one notable year and one of the most quietest seasons that we've seen in recent history was back in 1983, but it wasn't so quiet for us here in Southeast Texas. We were actually impacted by Hurricane Alicia, and that was the only landfalling hurricane that happened back in 1983, but the entire season only had 4 named systems, making it one of the quietest seasons that we've seen in recent history. So it's quite rare to have these quiet seasons, and it's looking likely that that could be the case for this year, even though that we are still in the peak of hurricane season. We still have quite a bit of ways to go as we head into the rest of October and November, and it has happened where we've seen storms flare up later in the hurricane season year. So September 20th, sort of getting closer towards the downgrading of the peak season as we head closer to October. But like I said, we've been saying hurricane season lasts until November 30th, and we're keeping our eyes out on the tropics until then. So of course, as always, you can stay up to date with the latest weather forecast and the latest tropics outlook on KHOU.com and on the KHOU 11 app.